today we are going to be talking about nonfiction. You know I am a fan of nonfiction, particularly a nonfiction audiobook, and so this is the BookTube nonfiction tag. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content here on this channel at least twice a week, and then movie reviews here at the weekend. In the description box below you will find all of my social links, including my blog and my Goodreads, so you can keep up with my reading in between videos. I will also leave last year's top 10 non-fiction reads video linked up above for you, just to prove that I do read some non-fiction, because question number one of this original tag, the tag was created by a book olive, and I'm so appreciative of her creating this tag because, you know, I love some non-fiction. However, question number one is, how much non-fiction do you read? So I went and looked at this year's Goodreads challenge, and I've read about 100 books so far as I'm filming this video. It'll be more by the time you're seeing this video, but only 10% of that right now is non-fiction. I seem to have leaned more towards fiction this year. However, I have normally read more than 100 books by the time I'm filming this. I'm filming this on July the 1st, and normally by this point I've read closer to 120 books, and so I think proportionally I'm just a little bit off, and so 10% is probably maybe about right. But then I look back at last year and it's a higher percentage. So I think I read lots of nonfiction. However, I've not read a ton of nonfiction in 2021. That could be to do with the current climate of 2021. I don't know. Or it could be to do with the fact that some books have been delayed from 2020, and so there is more fiction coming out in 2021. I'm not sure. But as I say, I do read non-fiction. I feel like I read more non-fiction books last November than I have done in 2021 so far. I'll have to go back and look at my last year's November wrap up, because I think for non-fiction November last year I did read double figures of non-fiction books. So I'll leave that video linked up above and you can see for yourself. Question number two, what kind of non-fiction videos do you make / do you want to make on BookTube? So I have made obviously videos vlogging non-fiction November. I've also done recommendation videos on non-fiction audiobooks as well. I will try and put together a specific non-fiction playlist, because maybe that's something I want to do to answer the second part of this question. But additionally, when I do my general reading vlogs, whether that's about a booked readathon reading vlog, a kind of like try and read as many of the books on my shelf reading vlog type of thing, I do include non-fiction in that as well. And so I feel like my kind of inclusion of non-fiction on this channel specifically is quite just organic and natural. It's inclusive in what I read. I would say less goes on my TBR in months other than when I'm planning a readathon or when I'm planning nonfiction November than fiction, but I tend to pick up nonfiction audiobooks just kind of as they come to me from the library, or as a review copy, or as a recommendation from whatever audiobook site I'm using on that day. So I think that I would like to kind of challenge myself to get that reading of nonfiction above 10%, but I think that this year is a little bit unique. As I say, I think it's probably partially the fact that some of the 2020 fiction releases came out in 2021, or some of my favorite fiction authors are releasing 2 books this year rather than 1 book, and so I'm kind of prioritizing that. But having just kind of sat down and made myself accountable by reading these questions, I feel like I'm gonna kind of pick up more nonfiction that way anyway. Question number 3, what's your favorite subgenre of nonfiction? I would say that I like a kind of like collection of personal essays, whether that's in the kind of memoir side of things, or whether that's just in almost like a podcast in book form. I know the book came first and not the podcast. So recently I read the quick reads version of How to Be a Woman by Moran, and a couple of other things that I've come on to tell you about. But I like if that collection of personal essays, whether it's a celebrity one or not, has a feminist leaning as well, because sort of that's the way I kind of got into reading more non-fiction than I used to, from reading books about, you know, being a woman, like How to Be a Woman by Moran, which kind of leads me on to, do you have a favorite non-fiction book? Yes, you just heard me mention it. How to Be a Woman by Moran. I love this. It's the Harper Perennials special edition, and I saw it in Strand, didn't buy it, then couldn't find it again anywhere else, so then I had to go back to Strand 6 months later, we're talking like February to October or something like that, and found it, and it was half price. So this is a very special version. This is not the first version that I've had, and I have subsequently listened to this on audio as well, and then read the quick reads version this year, which I have a reading vlog talking about, so I will leave that linked up above. Again, kind of non-fiction just comes into my reading vlogs naturally like that as well. What do you think keeps people from wanting to read more non-fiction? I think a lot of people confuse non-fiction with just facts and like factual books. So they think of them like the textbooks that we had to dive into at school. You know, behind me up here, I've got A Brief History of Time, and obviously that is a very meaty and not for everybody non-fiction book. But then below that I have like Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, and then Starbucked, and then Vagina Monologues, and like, you know, they're all non-fiction, but they're all very, very different non-fiction. And so I think for a lot of people, they think, oh, it's just factual, it's boring, it's like reading the newspaper. Like, no. And I think also a way in for me in particular, I predominantly access my non-fiction as audiobooks. So if it's a collection of essays, it's that author telling me those stories. It's if it's a celebrity memoir, it's that celebrity reading those stories. And even to the extent of the Moran essays rather than her fiction work, they are read by her, and so they're amazing. It's read like she's sitting down talking to me, and so I think that people are kind of missing out on, if they can access audiobooks, using audiobooks as a way into non-fiction for them as well. Question number 6. Why do I like non-fiction? I like non-fiction for the same reason that I was kind of one of the only people at school who was doing English language and maths for A-level. No, I was the only person. I think there was a couple of people doing English lit and maths, or they did the AS level, but I was the only person in my school at that time that did both English language and maths. And I know this because we tried to arrange like team meals on the same night, and I ended up having to go to both because I was organizing one of them. Whole thing. I love going into fictional worlds. I love going into things where there's not a wrong and a right answer, but then at the same time I also love having that ability to switch over to the other side where there is a definite right answer or there is a definite wrong answer. So I love the fictional worlds, but then I also love facts, and I like the fact that I can learn from both fiction and non-fiction. I think that, you know, you end up learning something not only about a new topic or a new place or a new person in both genres, but you can also learn stuff about yourself in both genres as well. You know, Moran taught me that it was okay to label myself as feminist, and having read that almost directly after leaving school, like that was, you know, a dirty word at school, like, oh, you know, if you're a feminist, it must mean X, Y, and Z about you. And it's like, well, no, actually, we just want, you know, equal rights. That's all it is. And so, you know, she taught me that. And then some of the travel writers I've read have led me to go to places I wouldn't have gone to, thanks for them. And so I really like that. And then going back to the audiobook side of it, I just like listening to someone tell me their story. And so, you know, sitting and listening to someone tell me a funny story or a sad story, it's like sitting down and having a conversation with a friend. It's like sitting down and being on the phone with somebody. And so that's why I specifically like audiobooks as non-fiction. Question number 7, what's a non-fiction book you've read because of BookTube? This one would have to be Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I hadn't heard of Roxane Gay at all. I admit that I probably would have picked this up eventually because it's pink and black, two of my favorite colors, and because it's Bad Feminist, and as you know, mentioned previously, I didn't kind of discover that I was a feminist without being told it from a book, and so I feel like that makes me a bad feminist. You know, love my lipstick and my jewelry too. But yes, this one is definitely something that I picked up because of BookTube. And then what's the best non-fiction book you've read lately? I have a whole video talking about this one, and this one is Broken by Jenny Lawson. I will just leave that video in the description box or linked up above for you, because it tells you exactly why I love this one. This one has popped up in my like mid-year book freakout tag, my favorite books of Q2. It's a solid favorite of 2021 for me, and one of the non-fiction books I have actually read this year. It's just had me crying with laughter, and so yeah, that's definitely something to be awarded. What are some of your non-fiction reading goals? I think, you know, having sat down and seen that I seem to have read less non-fiction this year, I know there's at least one non-fiction book on my TBR this month as I'm filming this, so maybe I need to try and put more non-fiction actually on my TBR. Sometimes it's in like a little like personal, I know I've got this from the library TBR in my head. Yeah, I don't know, I think that sounds, it's not very like specific. I know goals should be a little bit more specific, but maybe just to kind of ensure that there's some non-fiction on my TBR each month, because I'm trying to think, I don't think there was any in June for my June TBR. But then did I read any non-fiction in June? I don't think so. Oh no, there was. Caitlin Moran's How to Be a Woman quick reads version was on the TBR, and that's what I read in June in terms of non-fiction. So maybe just make sure there is some non-fiction on my TBR every month. I think that's definitely an achievable goal, even though it's not the most specific. And then what is your advice for incorporating more non-fiction into your reading diet? So I kind of like jumped into non-fiction thanks to reading this book from the library, and I was looking for something to read, and it wasn't the best library in the world. I was new to the area, I didn't have any books, I couldn't afford any books, and so I needed something from the library. I pulled this off, I think it was this version as well, and I saw this cover, and then I was like, right, okay, we're gonna read this. And so kind of coming to something with an open mind and just I need something to read, let's try something different, because previous to this I was just reading adult rom-coms, that was it. And so to pick up this as a non-fiction piece, definitely. Obviously the things I've already talked about, reading as an audiobook, like Jenny Lawson reading that book to me as an audiobook, Caitlin Moran updating me on her like most recently it's after How to Be a Woman, something about being a woman, and like the fact that she was reading that to me whilst I was in my car and then whilst I was in the gym, like that's really comforting to me. And again, I laugh out loud at things and I just enjoy that kind of thing. And then also, like, it doesn't, again, harken back to, it doesn't have to be a brief history of time. A couple of the ones I've loved recently have been The Greatest Love Story of All Time by Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman, and it's narrated by Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman, and they're just so tongue-in-cheek and they're literally just talking about themselves, and I loved listening to that. Or getting something read about a celebrity by a different celebrity, Me by Elton John, loved listening to this one. Both of these I had to buy the physical copy of the book because I wanted to see the pictures. Yes, enjoy seeing the pictures in the book as well. However, the audiobook of this one is read by Taron Egerton, who obviously played Elton John in the film Rocketman. I was reading this coming off the back of having watched Rocketman multiple times in the cinema. And so again, finding something like that you can pick out that makes a non-fiction book just a little bit different, and that will incorporate it into your reading as well. I will also say that I have, not only did I kind of get back into reading non-fiction, or reading non-fiction as something different from my textbooks that I'd had to read at university. You know, I found that Bill Bryson book in the library. I have come to many non-fiction books that I have read just because they've popped up on my Overdrive app or my Hoopla app, thanks to the library, or they've been in the physical library on the like new non-fiction shelves. You will be amazed at like how many of the books I've come to just because of that. And then it kind of links in with some recommendations of non-fiction BookTube channels that I love. I will admit I probably don't find as much non-fiction on BookTube as I could, because Book Olive and this tag shows you that there is a lot more non-fiction on BookTube. I know that Bethany and I have done a couple of non-fiction buddy reads, or have some non-fiction books in common that we've read, and so I don't feel like she's reading as much non-fiction now as she used to, but that may be that I've missed a couple of wrap-ups where she has read more non-fiction. That may be just me sort of dipping in and out of what she's read incorrectly. And so she definitely has some non-fiction on her channel. And again, I will sort of linking back with question number 2 about what you want to make on BookTube in terms of non-fiction. I will try and make a non-fiction playlist if I don't already have one, and I will leave that linked in the end screen for you, so that any future non-fiction videos that I make will be linked on there, so you can kind of set up alerts for that. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Let me know what your favourite non-fiction you've read recently is. I will be back with more bookish content for you very soon, so make sure you are subscribed, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out, and yeah, non-fiction playlist will be linked right here for you, and I will be back with another video very soon, so thank you very much for watching.